Today I'm going to be learning a little bit about the Swedish language, and I seen the title of this video and I thought it sounded interesting. This is Swedish words that most Swedes mispronounce. So interested to know that. I wouldn't have thought there would have been any words that Swedish people couldn't pronounce in their own language. Tell me what you think about these. Is this words that you cannot say? Like, interested just to learn more about the Swedish language. Keep recommending more videos about that as well. But let's watch this one today. Yeah, tell me if you can pronounce these.
Hi guys, I hope you're having a splendid day out there, and welcome. Today we're going to go through a list of Swedish words that most Swedes actually mispronounce. And I'm gonna make it like a game.
What was that one?
That most Swedes actually mispronounce.
Right.
And I'm gonna make it like a game show, so hopefully you can join in and maybe test out your Swedish. Maybe you're not talking Swedish, or maybe you are Swedish, and maybe you want to practice your Swedish. In either case, maybe it's gonna be a fun thing to tag along on this journey throughout words that even Swedes mispronounce.
Fan sitter du och säger?
We're gonna start out with the first word, which you're hopefully gonna see here.
Interview. Interview.
Can you pronounce this word? This word means interview. Obviously, it looks like interview, but how is it pronounced? This word is actually pronounced interview.
Interview. Interview.
But most Swedes pronounce it intervju.
Is that true? I know that in English there's some words like that people like swap the letters around and mispronounce. Maybe I'll try and think about maybe more like that, make a video myself, but interview rather than interview.
And why that is, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's easier to say intervju than view. The thing to note here is the position of the V, which should be placed where it is written and not how it's pronounced in some cases. I hear Swedes pronounce it interview even to this day, which is pretty interesting. But now you know how to pronounce that word. We're moving on to the next word. It's gonna appear here.
Citationstecken. Citationstecken. So a citation in English is like a when you get a fine from the police or something like that. So I don't know if it's something to do with that, but interesting
Somewhere
word.
magically. It's a pretty long word. I don't know if it's gonna fit here, but can you pronounce it? This word means quotation mark, and it's pronounced citationstecken.
Citationstecken. Citationstecken.
But most Swedes actually pronounce it situationstecken, which would essentially mean situation mark, which is something completely different. We're moving on to the next word, or it's not really a word, it's rather a place name, or actually a label of a Swedish water brand.
Ramlosa. Ramlosa.
Can you pronounce it?
Ramlosa.
If you did pronounce it Ramlosa, then you pronounce it correctly. But there's a lot of Swedes who actually pronounce it Ramlosa, which would make sense because there's only one M. But it's actually pronounced Ramlosa, as if it were two M's in there. Don't ask me why that is, but maybe it's a dialect sort of thingy going on there. If you know, please leave a comment down below. It would be interesting to know why that is. Here's the next word, and as you can see, it's a loan word.
Espresso.
Maybe you've seen it in English before. It's an espresso, and that's how we pronounce it in Swedish as well. The problem is a lot of Swedes pronounce this espresso.
That's actually something that happens a lot in the UK as well. You hear people say, I don't know where that actually originated from, espresso, and I'm pretty sure I've seen that on like American TV shows as well. People pronounce it that way. It must be a universal mispronunciation, I think.
Which would mean that it's a very fast type of coffee. Coffee. Fast. With that said, we're moving on to the next loan word. As you can see, it's not a Swedish word. It's
And entrecôte. Entrecôte.
a French word. Can you pronounce this in Swedish? Or maybe in French. Maybe you're French. This word is supposed to be pronounced entrecôte. Because that's how it's pronounced in French. Or it kind of is. Entrecôte? Is it pronounced like that? I need to ask Google Translate. Is it pronounced entrecôte?
Je suis un petit escargot.
Okay, this is a word that a lot of Swedes actually pronounce entrecôte. The reason to this is probably because in French there's a lot of letters that aren't necessarily pronounced. There's a lot of that's never pronounced, and so Swedes make the assumption that the last bit of this word is not gonna be pronounced, but it is.
I actually never use that
The
word
next
anyway.
word. Oh, magic word. I bet you've seen it before. It's actually a currency. It's a currency, and it's pronounced euro. Or euro, or however a Swede would pronounce it. But a lot of Swedes actually pronounce this evro. And why that is, I'm not entirely sure. Because in Swedish, the word for Europe, it's Europa. It's not Europa. You don't pronounce it with a V instead of a U. So I don't know why it becomes
That's interesting. Tell me if you pronounce it like that or ever heard it
Moving on
pronounced
to
like
the
that.
next word. It's not a word, it's a name. It's
Joel Kinnaman. Yeah, I've seen him in I can't remember what show it was. It was some sci-fi show. And he was like, excellent actor. Tell me what you think about him.
a Swedish actor, and he's pretty active right now in Hollywood, and he is pronounced Joel Kinnaman. But a lot of Swedes
Kinnaman.
pronounce him Joel Kinnaman, which does actually make sense because there's actually a place called Kinna. And actually, a lot of Swedish word that has the letter K followed by a vowel is actually pronounced sh. So that would mean it would make sense to pronounce his name Kinnaman, but in this case, he's pronounced Kinnaman. Don't ask me why. Maybe you can ask him if you have his number or something. The next word, or
Schweiz.
it's a country actually. Can you pronounce it?
Is that Switzerland? Maybe?
This word means Switzerland, and it's pronounced Schweiz,
Schweiz.
which I guess is pretty close to how you pronounce the country's name in German. But a lot of Swedes actually pronounce it Schweiz, so they
Schweiz.
mix out the positioning of the sh part and put it at the end instead of in the beginning. So it should be pronounced Schweiz and not Schweiz. Okay, you know that now. Moving on to the next word, which is pretty
Okay, this one looks quite hard. MARANG Swiss. MARANG Swiss.
long. It's a long word. Can you pronounce it? I would be very impressed if you could pronounce this word. This word is a Swedish dessert and is made out of a thing called meringue. I didn't
Meringue,
know there was
okay.
this English word called meringue, but it's called meringue in
I think maybe that comes from France as well, the word meringue.
Swedish. And this word is pronounced meringue Swiss.
MARANG Swiss.
But a lot of people pronounce it meringue swish, as if it was a very fast dessert, swishing by. Meringue swish. But it's pronounced meringue Swiss. Here's the next word for you.
Detective.
Can you pronounce it? It obviously means detective. And in Swedish, it's pronounced detektiv.
Detective. Detective.
But a lot of Swedes, especially when they're young, like I did when I was young, pronounce it detektiv. I don't know why that is. It is difficult to mix the T sound together with the K sound.
Detective.
And in this case, you should do it right, otherwise they will be on to your asses. And we're moving on to the final word, which is another French loanword.
Quason.
As you know, we want to be French in Sweden. No, not really, but this word, can you pronounce it in Swedish? Maybe you can pronounce it in French. I don't know if I can pronounce it in French.
Quason.
Google Translate, is it pronounced Quason?
Sauve-moi de ce suédois.
This word in Swedish is pronounced croissant.
Croissant, yeah. But yeah, in English, a lot of people will say croissant or something like that. They pronounce the R, but I think in French it's like croissant.
But a lot of Swedes pronounce it croissant.
Croissant.
For some reason, in this case, we pronounce the last bit of the word, even though it's a French word, which should be removing a lot of consonants. But hey, we can't always decide, can we?
That was cool. So yeah, I think that was quite universal as well. That last one, croissant, in the UK, the US, a lot of people pronounce it like croissant, or they pronounce all the letters more distinctly rather than the French, which is like that more smoother way of saying it. As you say, missing out some of the consonants. But tell me what you think about these. Do you mispronounce them? Have you ever heard anybody mispronounce them in Swedish or in Sweden? Yeah, is there any other words like that you think that should be on that list? Thanks.